Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about the Demon Prince campaign in Total War Warhammer 3, Immortal Empires. Though campaign is perhaps stretching the definition of the word. The Changeling has a campaign. Not really a great one, but at least it's a campaign. Daniel, I'm not really sure what Creative Assembly was aiming for over here. Or perhaps I can understand, but it clearly didn't work out. If this was to be considered a campaign, this would be one of the worst campaigns that has ever been made in a strategy game, and certainly the worst that Creative Assembly has ever made. At this point, I don't even consider this a campaign, and I'm sure many people will agree. So why make this video? Why play a campaign 67 turns as I just did over here in Immortal Empires as Daniel? Well, because if Creative Assembly is looking to perhaps make a campaign where they have character customization as they were trying to do with Daniel, I think it's important to look at why exactly Daniel didn't work out. What the problems were. There were plenty of issues in Realms of Chaos, and that's kind of the point to start with. The people who made Realms of Chaos, they had this idea of limitations in how a campaign should be played. If you look at all of the races that were introduced in Warhammer 3, minus Cafe to a degree, they have the same issues. Limited economy, limited armies, limitation after limitation. There's a reason why every single demonic faction, plus Kislev, have needed a rework to be good. Obviously, we're still waiting for Sinnelleos 1. Tzeentch didn't quite get a rework. They got a couple of updates, but you understand the point. I do think Daniel could use an update, but I also believe that the core design philosophy behind his campaign just wasn't going to work out. Now, generally speaking, when we talk about issues in a campaign, or racial issues, Legendary Lord issues, we look at the obvious. Research tree, buildings, unit recruitment, unit tiers, and all that. Daniel is a bit special in that because he has problems no one else has. So for instance, one of the ways that demon factions or chaos factions keep control over a territory is they rely on corruption. Now for Daniel, that corruption is Chaos Undivided. But the problem is, every single one of his elements in a campaign is going to be dedicated to one god or another. So for instance, over here, the initial province I took is all Nurgle. Now, you can choose which god you're going to dedicate this element to, absolutely. But if I were to just, take Daniel right here, look at this element, you can see that I can't go undivided, I can only go one particular god. So you can balance it out, that will come with its own issues. So you not only have the clear issues that many other races have, like unit recruitment tiers, economic issues, growth issues, etc. You go even further on that because of the corruption issue, which then translates into a control issue. And yes, we do have unit recruitment problems. Sure, Grey Unclean Ones, for instance, Soul Grinders, Toad Dragons, etc. being higher tiers, but we look at, say, for instance, a Nurgle element. The only things you can, you don't even have the entire roster. You used to at launch, but with all the DLC stuff, you know what they haven't added? Chosen of Nurgle, Chosen of Khorne. You got Chaos Warriors, which are pretty good, don't get me wrong on that, but again, you are not in the same situation as some other races. Some other cast races. Actually, all other cast races, which can recruit those better units. You look at Khorne, and what Khorne can recruit, you end up limited at tier 3, with Chaos Warriors of Khorne with halberds, and Chaos Warriors of Khorne with dual weapons. Meanwhile, in a Khorne campaign, you get Chosen at tier 3. So that is a fairly big limiting faction. Now, of course, it does tie in together of how demon units were compared to mortal units, and how mortal units are that much better in the campaign because of their durability, the way morale works versus the breakability. So Daniel is not just an issue of the campaign's design. It's an issue, it's a design that highlights the fundamental problems that exist in Warhammer. See, a good campaign, obviously every campaign is going to struggle with the inherent nature of Warhammer 3, but Daniel takes every single issue, or many of the issues that Warhammer 3 has, and embraces that with very little of the upsides that a campaign can have in order to make a good and fun experience. So that is another problem. And the reason they do so is this idea of customization. So customization of settlements, customization of Daniel army, but that just raises more problems. So for instance, let's consider economy, the obvious thing. Well, if we look at, say, a Nurgle settlement that I have right here, what you're required to have in order to get a decent economy, yes, you have your main economic building, but then you have a secondary building for extra income if you have a certain condition. And mind you, this is not just some minor thing either. It's a building that you care about with regards to that kind of effect. But if we look at Daniel, I think I've just gone too much with Nurgle, to be quite honest on that. But if we look at Daniel, if we look at the Demon Prince, some of these effects are not going to work because we see the situation that we have. It can give you hero capacity for that hero, but you have a building at tier 3 that also does that. And the condition just varies. For Khorne, it's like, oh, an enemy lord must be present. So you're telling me my economy is dependent on me being attacked by a certain faction in order to make it function. If we look at Slaanesh, for instance, you just gotta maintain a high level of control. And it's not even the worst part, but Nurgle is the only one you can reliably work with on that subject. Trying to find this element of Siege, kind of forgot where I might have put one, but you understand the point. Like the whole customization aspect, it's there. Customization of settlements, dedication to a particular god over another, but the whole customization doesn't end up working as a strength. Ends up being as a limiting factor, limiting an economy, but you also can't just ignore it either, because that brings another issue. Heroes. See, you need settlements of particular gods in order to increase your hero capacity for these heroes. And you kind of want all of them. Like, you want Plague Ridden for casualty replenishment. You want Horrors as well for, casualty replenishment as well. You want Luris for training. You want Blood Reapers for campaign movement range. Oh, and by the way, just how poor this has been entirely organized. So you got mobility, replenish troops, and training. The reason you have 2 with replenished troops is because they changed the Horrors from what they used to have to now having replenishment when they made a change for Siege. Like, they don't even consider the consequences of what they're going to do to Daniel. They just give him a lot of the stuff other factions have, at least in demonic units. He has the largest number of regiments renown of any faction in the game. So that's kind of the reason it works, because there's a lot of things here. And keep in mind, I do already have a bunch of regiments renown taken in this campaign. So you have a lot of demonic units, you have a lot of units you can use as regiments of renown in this campaign. That's the only good part of it, because your actual army is pretty bad. In fact, it's so bad that outside of a couple of units like Cast Warriors of Nurgle with great weapons, Cast Warriors of Khorne with dual weapons, halberds, and shields, and skull cannons of Khorne, most of the actual units you can recruit from a settlement are kind of not worth it. I mean, sure, you can go with Plague Ogres if you own Friends Decay, but this is a campaign that, far more so than any other campaign, relies on DLC to work, and even then, you're better off playing those races. So you're a faction where you're supposed to choose, but really the choices you have are just so bad that it doesn't end up working out. And you kind of just realize, okay, I'm just going to specialize in something. Like Khorne and Nurgle, though Khorne really have the best military troops, you want every god for heroes, and you also want Khorne for skull cannons. That's really the reality. Recruiting any kind of unit of Tzeentch or recruiting any unit of Slaanesh is not worth it at the moment. So the Toy Box faction has some really bad toys available to it. Now, of course, that is more of an issue as well of the problems that Tzeentch and Slaanesh have currently in terms of their unit roster, but my point is made. Now, on top of that, we have the body part. So Daniel, the Demon Prince, he doesn't have the ability of wearing regular items. He has these body parts. Now, what the issue is with these body parts is, early on in a campaign, he is vastly weaker than even a generic lord. You can eventually make him stronger, but there is a catch in this. You have no lord effect for him because it's body parts. You have no faction effects because it's body parts and demonic glory. So even though you can make him a decent combatant, other factions will still be better, because even if they might not have, say, a legendary lord that is able to match a very high level Daniel, they will have faction effects, they will have lord effects, and even generic lord effects. You'll look at generic exalted Bloodthirster. Yes, I am lacking an Armor of Destiny in this particular situation in order to really make this work. But a regular Bloodthirster, the strength that he has is not just in like armor, ward save, or something like that. It's also things like skills. And this guy isn't even the highest ranked one. But you get things like Colossal Strike, you get other things. Basically, the point is that someone like Daniel, he might have his own benefits, sure, but those benefits are inferior to what even generic lord of his own faction can actually achieve in certain ways. He might have certain strengths if you go on a specific path, but the idea that, oh, you can do a bit of magic, you can have some level of melee combat prowess, it doesn't work. There are some hybrid lords in the game that do work. Drazov is a great example, but he has a skill line, he has faction effects, he has lord effects, on top of everything else that Drazov can get. In fact, it's his special skill line that makes Drazov so good, because he has a really powerful magical benefit with Flames of Asgore, but he's also riding a very powerful mount, and he has a melee combat skill line. That is the difference between the Demon Prince and Drazov on that subject. But oh boy, if we talk about Daniel, we gotta talk about the skill line, because holy shit is that thing something else. So, Daniel's skill line is such a waste of points that realistically, let's go over it. Realistically, you don't bother with most things. So let's really go over it. When you start a campaign, you're going to want to go blue skill line. The reason is, actually, two reasons, is one, you can get campaign movement range. Virtually every other legendary lord, except Grombrindal, they get 5% campaign movement range as the first blue line skill. You have to spend a bunch of points in things that you don't really care about because you're fighting a war. You can't sit still because you don't have the economy to sit still to play defensively. You gotta be aggressively. You have to spend extra points on diplomacy, which, okay, be useful, not necessarily so much. And then to get campaign movement range. Yes, eventually you get lightning strike. That's the reason you bother with it. But then here's the problem. You don't really have a lot of combat skills with Daniel. You don't have a melee skill line. You have a bunch of army benefits, a couple of economic benefits, or rather growth control benefits. But him being this powerful in theory doesn't make up for the fact he doesn't have those skills. Oh, and he gets things like, ooh, I can sack settlements. I can really buff up some combat troops of a particular faction. When I'm playing a faction where inherently you're going to mix and match troops. So you have these skill lines that are kind of pushing you to specialize, but it's kind of just a bad notion to even care about this. Like, who really cares about 4 melee attack for, soul grinders? Or going all the way to, 8? Now, sure, there's still a couple of things that are worth getting here, but realistically, what you're going to bother is the skills kind of around here, Lightning Strike, and a couple of other things, of course. Like diplomatic relations with all factions, casualty replenishment, Nurgle rewards, etc. Speaking about Nurgle rewards and post-battle rewards, that's kind of a big deal as well. So his skill line is pretty bad. The items, the body parts, a lot of them are kind of fluff until you get really late in the game. I mean, dozens of turns into the game, at which point the campaign is just an endless grind. It's not even a good grind because you don't have the economy to support a lot of armies. Like, over here, yeah, I have 4 armies. Sure. Okay. And I'm kind of losing stuff here because... Let's see if we can even get any of these. No. Alright, let's just take that. Now, the other problem is you have this idea, this push for glory to unlock various other things. But again, you'll have a limited economy. Like, let's look at this. You can get Winds of Magic, which is like 5 from Siege. You can get 1,200 gold from Slaanesh. You can get some casualty replenishment when you have 2 casualty replenishment heroes. You can get a bit of experience, or you can get nothing. So... basically, when you're playing with this, you almost always want to go Slaanesh. Maybe a bit sometimes with Nurgle until you get those casualty replenishment heroes. But this brings us to the research tree, quote unquote. This is not a research tree. If you consider this a research tree, it's genuinely the most god-awful research tree that CA has ever put in a Total War game to date. There's some campaign benefits. They don't make up for the loss of faction effects and lord effects. But let's consider this. So you have Undivided Glory, Khorne, Slaanesh, Siege, Nurgle. Okay? Now, and then you have a specialization. In terms of that specialization, Undivided is literally the only one you ever want to go for. And the reason it's the only one you want to go for is it gives you Lord Recruit rank, Hero Recruit rank, Cast Undivided Corruption in adjacent provinces, and 15% upkeep to all armies, recruitment cost, recruit rank, local recruitment duration 1 turn, global recruitment duration 2 turns for all units. So that's a powerful benefit that you get dozens of turns in as a faction that can't even really do a lot of armies. Like other factions, like to give you an idea, if this was Greenskins, that would be insanely good, but it's not Greenskins. I would say the positive is the fact that you do have the ability of recruiting a lot of armies and heroes on the fly in the late game. So the potential buildup is there, but the early game is honestly a piece of shit. And the only reason you can work late game is not because you suddenly have the money, even from Val, to maintain stuff and recruit stuff and all that stuff. Yes, you do have a couple of other benefits here, but if we look at these benefits, they're not making up for the inherent weakness that you have. Like to say, for instance, give an example. you can only recruit these heroes once you get to a certain level of corruption with every god. And you get a couple of benefits. Oh, a couple of benefits fighting against slashing factions, siege factions, Nurgle factions, Khorne factions. Yeah, that's really great for a faction that doesn't care about that. Oh, I can get a bit of control, casualty post-battle, reduce construction time for buildings of a particular god. That's great until you realize that those buildings take longer to construct for Daniel inherently than they do for other factions. So, for instance, Capital, even with all the benefits that I've gotten in this campaign, and I've gotten everything I could unlock, still 6 turns at tier 4. I mean, even like a tier 2 Capital is still 4 turns. That gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. Another thing to point out is your heroes, your lords are all demons. And the issue with that is, it's one thing to talk about units that might be demons, they have their own problems. But when your lords and heroes are demons, guess what happens? You lose them. You lose them because they don't break, they disintegrate. So, that's an issue. Now, other factions have that problem, but if you're playing a Khorne faction, 2 of your heroes out of 3 are mortals. And you just got to be careful about the one hero that's actually got the ability of surviving in combat, and that's a Blood Reaper. Someone like an Luris, or someone like a Plague Ridden, or someone like a Horror, that is a very different situation. And that's one of the reasons you care about Khorne, is Khorne has the durability, alongside some Nurgle units, to actually make you withstand things. But really, everything that I've talked about, the research tree, the body parts, the quote-unquote research tree, the glory, etc., all of it is fluff. The real way you make this campaign work, and this is why it's so shit, you don't play this campaign. It's like, oh, I'm going to fight people, I'm going to take territory, I'm going to build up. I'm going to get the economy, I'm going to get unit variety, and I'll be able to maintain that economy and units. You don't have the best units because you can't specialize your generals to give them combat power. You might think, well, I can just get an Exalted Bloodthirster and get a bunch of Khorne units. You can, until you realize that your casualty replenishment heroes are with Nurgle and Siege, and so you have to get those buildings as well, those settlements as well, which means you're going to have that unit recruitment, and also you are probably better off using regiments around, so you don't even have the ability of getting powerful armies. Your lords can be good, sure, the generic ones, but not Daniel. But here's the way you do it. You abuse the one thing that some people don't want to abuse. You abuse vassalization. Now, it's not the worst vassalization in the game. That would probably go to Nurgle because it just takes longer. But what you do in a campaign like this is you take some territory and then you sell territorial barracks for other factions. Like, this is how I got Boris Ursus. This is how I got Kislev. I mean, I guess Yuri was telling the truth, Yuri being Daniel. It's like, he will rule Kislev. Well, I managed to rule Kislev in this case. Like, yeah, I fought Kislev's enemies, including Archeon, and I vassalized all of Kislev. This kind of brings up a point, though, about ruling stuff. Do you know how you get... Do you know one of the problems that you have with the so-called unit variety that you only really have on paper for a long time? You don't actually get a variety of unit recruitment through settlements you're building up. You're not building up settlements. Here's what happens. You eventually capture tier 4 settlements or tier 3 settlements from better factions that have better growth than you and better construction time than you and a better economy. So the skull cannons that, for instance, I recruited over here for all of my armies, they were recruited from Hellpit when I conquered Hellpit from Front. And I just took that settlement in the name of Khorne. So you're conquering territory from factions. It's like saying, oh, your faction can have something good just if you conquer Zarnagrund. No, that just means Zarnagrund, that starts as a tier 5 settlement, is a good settlement. That doesn't mean your faction is good. It's different from Grimgor, because Grimgor doesn't need Zarnagrund. It's just a nice, lovely fucking bonus that makes him unstoppable in his campaign. But if you tell me to a straight face that Grimgor's campaign is dictated by Zarnagrund or not, no, it's a really, really nice bonus from multiple perspectives to get Zarnagrund as quickly as possible. But that's kind of the problem with Daniel. You don't have scalability, even though you supposedly have it. Your economy doesn't work, so you rely on other factions for your economy. Trading settlements for them, like seriously, the 70k gold I got in this campaign, the way I got that was getting like 60k gold deals from Katrin, Grimgor, Boris, and others in this campaign. Oh, and yes, I did get Grimgor. that is not a joke. And well, let's just say that Grimgor scared the crap out of me. You want to see a powerful faction, a good faction? It's right here. Keep in mind, this climate is not favorable to him. Yeah, and also he's giving me money in this campaign. In fact, I might even look at the situation over here. He's giving me 1,600, which is not a lot to be sure on that subject. But let's take a look at the vassal situation. Arbol, okay, he's very little. Grimgor 1,600, Nurgle 500, expected. Katrin 2,600, and Boris Ursus only has one province, 700. If I look at my income right here, it's 23,000, but 5,000, 6,000 of that almost is vassal tribute. I am gaining, well, a lot of territory at turn fricking 70. More from building income, but really, if I had let my vassals, especially Grimgor, or if I had gotten more vassals to give them more territory, they would be making me more money. Don't even get me started how much money I'd be making if I had gotten Malice Darkblade as a vassal, because yes, that's one of the things about Dark Elves, they give you a lot of vassal income. But if you're reliant on vassals for anything, you're not playing a good faction or a well-designed one. It's a different affair for Warriors of Chaos, because Warriors of Chaos, assuming there's any of them still alive, no, they all got wiped out. But Warriors of Chaos, as a race, yes, they can benefit significantly from vassals. They can benefit significantly from capturing higher level settlements. They can benefit significantly from univariety. They actually have workable univariety in their faction because of the way their skill lines work for generals, for heroes, the way authority works. And if you're playing someone like Archaon or Be'lakor, you have almost just as many regiments renown as Daniel has. So my point in this video, the conclusion is, if the idea of this campaign is like the Toy Box faction, it's a really bad toy box. The proper toy box factions are Be'lakor, especially Be'lakor, and Archaon. They are so far ahead of Daniel, it is not even remotely funny. They're better in every single way, and even in the strengths Daniel has, say for instance, the idea of customizing units, they're still better than him because they get more units. So this campaign is not something that Creative Assembly should use as a building block for a future campaign. This is a warning signal. You want to look at a good campaign, look at Be'lakor, look at Archaon. The problem is those campaigns have, and they have their own, is that they're so good, they trivialize the rest of the game. So that's more of an issue of they're pushing things so hard and taking advantage of so many things in Warhammer free structure, then the AI or other factions can't really keep up. And that's kind of one of the problem and the limiting factors of Warhammer free. which hopefully wouldn't be the case in another Total War game. But yeah, please don't do another Daniel campaign. If you want a very short summary of it, don't do it. It sucks. It's terrible. It's the worst damn thing you made. Also, the demonic glory shit. All these benefits don't compare to a proper research tree. A proper research tree is 100 times fucking better. Cosine signing out.